Hallo miteinander, I'm Koukishin, and this is Remilia Scarlet, the one we rejected to take along for our curiously Scarlet adventures. This episode of our Let's Play is dedicated mostly to her, so that she and her fans don't have to feel sour. First of all, how different are the two protagonists to each other? Story-wise, not very. There are no exclusive stages for any of the two, only one boss fight is against someone else. I'll show that one to you later. Remilia's attitude towards her opponents is a little bit more posh and harsher on average, cultivating the stereotype of the arrogant noble. Also, Sakuya will be the one who gets lost in the library archives whenever Remilia is in charge. That's it for story. When it comes to playing as Remilia, she does feel very different compared to Sakuya. Both of them have many ranged attacks, but on average, I find Sakuya's a little bit more useful. If you want to get the absolute most out of Remilia, it helps to have a more daring and aggressive approach. I suppose this makes her more of a bruiser, and Sakuya the more strategic character. Yet, I wouldn't brand any of the two a novice or advanced character. Just start the game with whoever you like best. Once you've tried both, you will know what your preferred playstyle is. For me, it just happened to be Sakuya's. Remilia does have two abilities that her servant does not. One is the same that Flandre already had, flapping her wings to slow any fall. It sometimes helps for escaping an attack, but more importantly, it'll help you brave jumps that Sakuya couldn't make on a few occasions. It's used by just holding down the jump button, by the way. The other very intriguing ability of Our Lady is her dive bomb. This one is done by using a standard attack while in the air. The damage it does is actually pretty meager, unfortunately. When it comes down to fighting, I really prefer that Sakuya can still use her normal dagger slashes when coming down from a jump, as opposed to Remilia's forced dive bombing. It is stronger and more precise, you also don't fling yourself who knows where. However, the dive bomb is super relevant for speedrunners. If you use it in the proper rhythm, no technique in the game lets you travel faster. That is also where those insane sub 1 hour clears come from. One last thing that is different for Remilia, Korindo has an alternate music track, a very pleasant one that is giving me some island paradise vibes. I might like it even more than the one Sakuya got, which is by no means bad. Very elegant actually. Alright, I think we'll go over Remilia's skills now. A starting skill of hers is Vampire Turn. It is a simple and cheap area of effect attack at first glance. If you know how to use it though, it's one of the most overpowered attacks in the whole game. That's because it's very fast and extremely spammable because of its low cost. When you use it to link together your melee combos, you can even stunlock many bosses. The other starting skill is Heartbreak, a pretty unassuming projectile that is not really all that different to Sakuya's knife throw. While it's not anything great, it suffices in the early game. Who knows, if you find some clever uses for it, it may not only break hearts, but other very vital organs too. Next up is Demon Lord's Cradle, which is just Remilia spinning forward like a drill. It's generally a potent but expensive move. It isn't a bad one to use, but you must get used to it first. It's tricky to aim and know that it can be risky. It has some range, yes, but you're using Remilia's body as the projectile, which means you might end up between too many enemies afterwards. Scarlet Accelerator sounds pretty interesting on paper. It is a purely defensive move, somewhat of a dodge roll. It is the only skill in the game with a cost of 0, but the issue is that jumping can be just as effective for avoiding attacks. Unlike many other skills, you're not even invulnerable during the animation. Scarlet Accelerator earns my golden Razzie for the most unnecessary skill in the game. Much better is Stigmanizer. It is a projectile stronger and larger than Heartbreak. Its size gives it the advantage of a bigger hitbox and therefore more accuracy. On the downside, the cross has a very low flying speed, which, contrary to the accuracy from its size, may sometimes lead to enemies not being where you aimed anymore. It isn't a great skill, but still a decent one. The same could be said about Vampire Spin. It seems like an upgrade to Vampire Turn, being stronger and knocking enemies back. Unfortunately, it is far slower to execute. The amazing stun locking that Vampire Turn can do is not possible with this one. Scarlet Bomb is a very situational skill, an arcing grenade of sorts. If you see it as just another projectile, it is unwieldy, difficult to aim, and has an underwhelming range. Worst of all, ceilings can get in the way. If you're attacking enemies on a higher platform though, it can sneakily take them out with little effort. There aren't many places in the game where it makes sense to use, but that is its niche. Trident Break is, as the name hints, an upgrade to Heartbreak. It is a three-way projectile similar to Sakuya's Strong Knife. If you throw it into a large group of enemies, the additional spears have a good chance of taking down some of the foes you never even aimed for. All in all, it is a valuable skill. Continuing with upgrades, Vampire's Cradle obsoletes Demon Lord's Cradle. The skill is the same in nature, but both stronger and blessed with a larger hitbox. Use of its predecessor often makes you look clumsy. This one is so much more forgiving when it comes to the question whether you hit an enemy or just barely missed him. The next skill you will learn a little ways into the main game, 1000 Needles. This one is a bigger, more expensive area of effect skill that lasts a while. It'll deal the most damage if you can spawn it directly under an enemy. Of course, it'll repel those that try to close in later too. It's useful, but it has a dangerous downside. You won't cancel any bullets that are on their way to you. You may doom yourself to be hit if you use it carelessly. Now we come to the 4 skills of post-game. Full Body Break is the final incarnation of Remilia's magical spears. It is a lone, powerful projectile as plain as Heartbreak if you think about it. Against strong, single enemies you don't want to get close to, it is easily your best bet. Full Body Break is learned at level 42. Here's one with a bit of an odd name, Remilia Stretch. It is no esoteric yoga exercise, but a savage, close-range claw slash. This attack is useful in many situations. You can instantly get rid of very weak enemies with it, or, as an alternative, put it at the end of a combo to maximize the damage of that one assault. You will learn it at level 45, still during the first half of the labyrinth, most likely. Remilia Bomber is an upgrade to Scarlet Bomb. This one doesn't need to be reduced to a mere niche, it is a really cool skill. You'll get a whole barrage of devastating grenades out of it that can swiftly clean out highly populated rooms in the labyrinth. While I think it just falls short of being a boss killer, multiple explosions can hit the same enemy, adding up to a pretty impressive damage count. You'll have this one once you hit level 47. The last skill we have also gets the award for the most gruesome sounding technique of the game, Vampire Amputation. Learned only at level 50, this one is a hybrid of Vampire Turn and Vampire Spin. It far exceeds the power of the latter and almost has the speed of the first. It's once again fast enough to keep enemies stun locked if used in the right way. Bosses, most likely not. All considered, this is my favorite skill of Remilia. Those were all of her skills, but of course, Remilia also has 3 spell cards. Your starter is Miserable Fate. The summoned chains here extend impressively far, but power-wise, this is Remilia's weakest spell. We can roughly compare it to Sakuya's Killing Doll, good against crowds, not so much against bosses. Next up, we have Divine Spear Gungnir. This spell feels like it has a lot of impact, which makes it pretty fun to use. It's just as you can expect from the spear of Odin himself. It will only go in one direction, but during the charge up, you can adjust your position and also your aim. Its power is only trumped by Scarlet Sign, Red the Nightless Castle. You'll get this at level 32, just like Sakuya's ultimate spell. It's fit for all situations, bosses or enemies, doesn't matter. The energy cross you summon only has a medium range, although its hitbox slightly exceeds its graphics. Whatever you do, don't overestimate the reach of the spell. Apart from that, you'll love this one. So much for what the Scarlet Devil has to offer. There's one more uniqueness to her, relatively inconsequential, but nice to know. Sakuya's and Remilia's items often have different names. Only Sakuya will find French maids. Bonnets, for example, are exclusive to the Mistress. These are only name changes. The altered items will usually have equivalents. Remilia's weapons, by the way, tend to be nails. Yeah, she scratches and bites the enemies. Kind of undignified if you think about it. We are now Flandre again. Why are we Flandre again? Well, I've got some good news here. Remember that bold speculation I made about there being a boss fight against Sakuya? Turns out, it's true, and you'll only get to fight her in Remilia's campaign. During Flandre's flashback, our maid will then be Pachuli's Keeper of Secrets. The conversation will be mostly the same, but the fight itself is noticeably different. I'd even say Sakuya is a little bit harder to beat than Remilia, not by much. Flandre's flashback will still be very easy overall. Sakuya is speedy and often attacks from afar. Even her melee attacks help her cross surprisingly long distances. Her spell card is Killing Doll, which is also more dangerous than Miserable Fate. It's not enough to just stay away from the spell. Woe is us, we actually have to jump the knives. It's looking very good so far. Levitate and its 5-digit damage numbers are our best friends. Oh, I do feel a little bad going up against our former heroine. Sakuya did all the work in our Let's Play, and as a final thanks, she is getting pummeled one more time. She doesn't deserve that, and look how poorly Flandre is treating our perfect maid now. Oh man, I'd rather play the other version of Flandre's flashback. Let's conclude our bonus episode on a more pleasant and amusing note. Here's a montage of a few weapon unique skills. Some of these powers may have strategic value, but linking them to weapons that become outdated quickly or are never that good to begin with often makes them irrelevant. There is, however, one I'd like to give special coverage of: the Charisma Guard, gained from wearing the Charisma Cap, the only armor unique skill I know of. As you can see, Remilia huddles down and pulls her bonnet over her face. This creates a shield. I don't know how in the world this could create a shield, but somehow it does. Getting hit in this stance only drains skill points. I think the Charisma Cap might be a Remilia exclusive. I have never found an equivalent in my Sakuya playthroughs. Alrighty, those were the loose ends I wanted to address as a bonus. I briefly thought of showing you the true ending cutscene for Remilia, but it didn't feel appropriate. Endings should be earned, not just served. For Sakuya's, it was okay. We did go through the game together, didn't we? See the majority of Remilia's cutscenes as your incentive to play the game for yourself if you haven't already. You won't regret it. With that is a wrap. Once again, I hope you enjoyed this Let's Play of Touhou Koukishin as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm Gish86, this was Remilia Scarlet in a nutshell, and next time, the greatest of all European dynasties. Bis bald!